Hey everyone, welcome to Robot Fight Club. My name is Lucas, and in today's video I'm going to be going over how my ant weight shuffling overhead spinner overdraft did at the March 2nd event, March Mayhem, held by Richmond area bot instigated destruction. I recently had the pleasure of attending another event held by Rabid Combat Robotics Club out in Richmond, Virginia. They did an excellent job. Huge thank you to the organizers for putting it on. It was a really fun event to be at, and I brought my newly redesigned version of Overdraft, a robot I've been working on since 2022, and I took all the lessons I've learned to make a robot that I was hoping was going to be a lot better than the previous versions, and I'm happy to say it actually turned out very, very well, and I was very happy with the performance of Overdraft at this event. So without further ado, let's get into the first fight. So my first fight of the day was against Banana Hammer, which is another overhead drop spinner, which I was really worried about because there's a lot to hit on top of my robot. Wasn't really expecting to encounter another one of these. So right away, we land some hits on top of each other's robots, and I believe at this point my weapon is still working, but here in a minute that's all going to change. He's able to kind of get behind me and cut right into those wires from my weapon motor, so at this point my blade can no longer spin, which is a huge disadvantage. But fortunately, in those first initial hits, I was able to hit the pivot of his hammer arm, so his whole arm isn't working anymore, and mine is. So I'm still kind of able to do this aggressive tapping on top of his robot, but unfortunately not able to cause any actual damage at this point, which is really disappointing because he had a thin top plate. It was just some 3D printed plastic, so I was hoping to go through that at some point, but obviously with no weapon that's not going to happen. So this fight's kind of just turned into a pushing battle. I do seem to have some advantage, but we do get stuck together here by the forks and get separated. So the fight resumes. As you can see, I've taken off one of his drive belts. He was actually running cleats on his robot, so no rubber wheels. It was just sharp metal discs designed to dig into the floor, which is pretty cool to see. So he's still able to drive with that belt gone because he has one wheel on each drive side driven directly by the motor, and then one driven by the belt. And at this point, he's able to get that weapon spun up again. I don't know if he couldn't spin it up before, or if he just now realized that the spinner would still work with the arm down like that. But I was pretty scared because he could just ride straight up onto the top of my robot with that disc, which you'll see happen very shortly. At this point, I'm just trying to avoid his spinner and try to just hit him with the arm, but he's able to kind of get into the top of my robot with that disc still spinning and start to cause a little bit of damage. A lot of damage being done to the top plate of my robot, which is 1mm aluminum, 6061. And at this point he gets the arm in such a way that it's right over my arm. And when I try to use my arm to free myself, I just push it straight into the spinner, and it destroys the hub of the arm, and my weapon is disabled. But fortunately, his entire spinner just comes off the weapon at the last minute. And with that, I end up going to the judges and taking the win. Very, very nerve-wracking fight though. First of all, here is the arm from Banana Hammer. as you can see, it's just 3D printed. I believe this is probably just PLA plus, I don't know for sure. But as you can see, this whole part just cracked off, and this is where I hit the hub and kind of bent it, so I believe that's what originally caused the arm to stop functioning properly. So that hit there from my blade most likely ended up jamming their weapon up, and then that just kind of blew apart at the end. Other than that, as far as damage to my own robot, this is after all the fights I had, but a lot of this, like a lot of these strikes up here are actually from Banana Hammer. And what happened in the fight was I got hit like basically right here, and this linkage on the servo was completely destroyed. This screw was all bent out of shape, and then some damage here, the actual like mounting of the arm. But overall, just a really brutal fight, and I was happy to get out of it without, without losing. My next fight was against a Repeat Robotics scaler kit, the horizontal spinner, called BootLoop. And for this fight, I made a TPU wedge that I was hoping to use to absorb some of those hits. So at first, he's able to deliver quite a few shots, but on this third hit, he gets stuck in the front of the wedge, and I'm able to just start hitting the top of his robot. I end up going straight through those carbon fiber supports for the weapon, and I hit his weapon belt before he's able to free himself. So at this point, he has no weapon, and I'm able to take control and deliver more hits, and eventually he just taps out. So really quick and fun fight. My next fight is against a super solid vertical spinner called Hellish Rebuke. He added some extra TPU top armor to his robot for this fight, and my goal was just to try to stay on as much as I could and not let him get those combination shots. So he flips himself over right away, and I'm able to hit into the top of his wedge, and we just get stuck together. So we go in for a quick on stick and continue the fight. At this point, I know I'm able to get under him pretty easily, so as long as I can stay squared up, I should be fine. I'm able to kind of get in to the side of his robot, but that top armor he made out of TPU is really holding up, so not able to cause any damage. Some more hits. He gets a nice pop on me. We go weapon to weapon. At this point, I get another shot right on the back of his robot, but the TPU armor is still holding strong, and I get stuck in it, trying to pull my blade out. Ended up succeeding in that. And him just being really aggressive. He doesn't have any wedgets though, which is kind of giving me the advantage when we go head to head. So he does try to attempt to get around me, which he's able to do right here, but nothing much comes of it. Some more back and forth. He's not really able to do too much with his weapon, and I'm not really able to do too much with mine, so we're more or less just pushing each other. And right here, I get right in on the back of his robot, and was in a position to do a lot of damage, but a piece of his top armor comes off and gets stuck in my blade, which was super annoying, but kind of cool to see the armor kind of work like that. So at this point, I'm worried. That's a lot of points for him there, disabling my weapon like that. So I'm trying to free this piece from my disc, so I end up just starting to try to hit into his blade, and that pulls it free, and now my weapon is functional again. And not much time left in this fight, so just trying to really land some shots here in the last 10 seconds. Overall though, super close fight, and I end up taking the win by judge's decision. So I have a few things from fighting Hellish Rebuke. Here's a piece of top armor that got stuck in the weapon, right there. This is just TPU, and it came right off and got stuck. And then here's just some carbon fiber pieces from the top of his robot. So at this point, I am 3-0 and excited for this next fight against Carlton 379, which is a shuffling dual disc spinner, which is super cool to see. This was his first robot he'd ever built, and it's kind of insane how good it was for a first ever robot. Super, super solid. And kind of a funny thing that happened in this fight is I was talking to him before the fight, and just looking at his robot and all that stuff. He was looking at mine, and it looked like the top of his robot was just carbon fiber. So I was like, oh, okay, I can probably get through this fairly easily. And when the fight actually started, I start hitting into the top of his robot, and it's just solid metal. So I'm like thinking, what's going on here? He's obviously like added some metal here. And we were talking after the fight, and it turns out when I was looking at the robot, he had it flipped upside down, hiding the titanium top plate, which is kind of cool. So when the fight started, I had no idea that he had all this top armor to work with. So very cool. And he was able to just take all the hits from that hammer spinner with no issue. I really wasn't able to cause any serious damage during this fight. He's not really getting good engagement with his blade either though, so it is kind of a shoving battle where I'm landing some hits here and there. He's creating some sparks. I have a lot more traction on my drive than he does, so I'm really able to push him around. I do kind of try to switch up where I'm hitting him, because that titanium top plate is not going to budge at all. So I start trying to hit his legs, but they're just TPU, and I'm not really able to do too much damage to them. And this is a really frustrating thing that happened. So I think it was from all the pushing, I don't know, but my Repeat Robotics dual ESC must have overheated or something, and my drive just dies, and my receiver is cutting in and out. I think this must have also overheated like the DEC to the receiver, so basically my robot's just dead in the water. When I turned the robot on and off, let the electronics cool off, it worked perfectly fine, so this is just a frustrating way to lose. But I do take the loss by knockout and move on to another fight against Hellish Rebuke. So fighting Hellish Rebuke again. I was pretty certain I could do like pretty much the same thing as I did the last time, so I was a lot more confident going into this fight. A little bit worried my robot would kind of die again though, so trying to be a little bit careful. He flips himself again, which he seems to do a lot just because of the way his robot is. He is still very dangerous in this position though, so I'm trying to be careful. I get a good chance at the bottom plate of his robot, but it doesn't end up going through. And he's kind of stuck on the seam here, so I'm trying to like maneuver around him. Here he gets stuck on his side. I try to go to that opposite side and hit him on the bottom, but he ends up freeing himself just in time. Overall, just kind of dropping the ball and actually hitting what I need to right here. What actually happened in one of those exchanges is I hit into his weapon and it bent my blade against the arm, so it's no longer able to spin. Kind of the reason for this is I'm using 2mm mild steel because I wanted a thin blade and there wasn't AR500 thin enough. And so that's the reason it just bent over, which I wasn't really expecting it to bend as much as it did. But that's what I get. I really should have just gone with the AR, and I'm going to switch to that in the future, even if it is a little bit thicker and not able to pierce as well. But this is really costing me points here. So I'm just trying to hit him with the arm and just pin him against the wall and stuff. And his weapon does kind of just come apart, so that was advantageous for me. So I'm kind of just able to go at him, but I also don't have a weapon at this point, or I don't have a disc at this point, so I'm not really able to do too much with it. But he stays flipped over and I'm able to just more or less push him around. So not exactly how I wanted the fight to go, but it didn't go too badly either. And this was fairly frustrating. The fight ended up going to a judge's decision where I lost. I was kind of confused at this decision actually. I thought I did better in this fight than in my first fight against him. So I was really surprised when I lost. But at the end of the day, it went to the judges and they have the final call, so I can't be too upset about it. When it was all said and done, I ended up getting third place and going 3-2, which is the best that Overdraft has done in the 3 competitions I've been at with it. So really happy to see the progression in the design and to see this new version do a lot better. I'm excited to continue competing with it and hopefully taking home an event win in the near future. To all the people I competed against, great job on making such solid robots, and I had a blast fighting you. For the event organizers, huge thank you for putting on such a well put together event, and I look forward to attending more in the future. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please stay tuned. I've got another event coming up next weekend, and Overdraft will be there, so I'm hoping to do well at that. If you're interested, please check out the channel. Anyways, thank you so much, and I will see you next time on Robot Fight Club.